Hello, welcome back to my haunted library. It's Regina. So I am in full widow's weeds today because I have a very interesting tag video called the Death Tag. I have my friend Lester here to help me out with it. I found him at the Rite Aid. It was on sale, so I think maybe one bone was broken, but I got a nice deal on him. And yeah, let's do this. It'll be fun. But before we get to it, I do have some mail. This one I already opened, came with this nice seal. This was a mail-in short story for Bookworms, my new zine. So I have encouraged people to send me physical copies since the theme of the zine is all mail. So I'm looking forward to reading that. The lovely Pax sent me a Halloween card with some cute stickers inside. So thank you, dear. I love this color green for Halloween. People sometimes don't think of that bright green, but it's definitely a Halloween color. And speaking of Halloween, my dear friend Gregory sent me his annual All Hallows Eve poem, which I'm going to take a moment before doing the tag to read to you. He writes a poem for Halloween every year and sends it out to all his friends, and then he'll put them into a book. In fact, he has a book on Amazon of all of his poems that were compiled a few years ago, and then I guess he'll do like volume 2. I'm going to link it below if you want to check it out. All Hallows Return. The chill of autumn has come again, thus let our All Hallows plans begin. Bring out the purple, the orange, the black, to happily and heartily welcome Halloween back. Unmasked at last, yet cautious still, we dare to return to the things that thrill. So long an absence, it made us ache. At last, our All Hallows joy has awaked. The witches and warlocks and goblins and all prepare their potions to make us crawl. Weaving spells that possess and command, an old-fashioned All Hallows is what they demand. So carve the pumpkins and deck the halls with honeycomb, decor, and streamers and all. Lay the tables heavily with All Hallows fare. Do everything you can to properly prepare. For children again will knock on our door, begging for candy, yelling, "More, more, more!" Therefore, the cauldron must be filled to the brink with every good thing, plus Halloween drinks. Dip the red apples and put nuts on top. Load bowls full of candy, full, non-stop. And ice up the cupcakes for all the kids' sake. Fill them full of goodies until they shake. Rejoice now, our children are blessedly back, running and racing with their Halloween sacks. So pave their way with trails of candy corn. They all must awake sated on All Saints' morn. He's wonderful. And he does his house like you would not believe. I did a video called Holiday House about his house on holidays. I did Christmas, Halloween, and 4th of July. This was years ago. And I don't know if it's on YouTube, but I posted on my Facebook page. He's wonderful, and he's a really good friend. And it's always about the kids, you know. I mean, he gives out so much candy. The kids must line up around the block, so it's really great. All right, so on to this tag. I might go off on some tangents here because this was a really thought-provoking tag. And I don't know if it's an original tag, but I will link Mr. Morningstar's video that he did on the tag below. So let's begin the death tag. Number 1, do you think death is a disease we can eventually cure? That's a very interesting question. I don't think of it as a disease, but I do think, of course, that we can always improve our health and our longevity. Maybe we could live longer and longer. I think we need to definitely change our environment and our diets in a lot of ways. And yeah, anyway, that's another topic. But I think that without death, we would not be who we are. You know, I remember that book, The Denial of Death by Ernest Becker, which is an amazing book if you've never read it. It's all about how humanity and culture have been based on the concept of our awareness of death and our denial of that through religion, through through art, through any kind of science, any way that we're trying to get out of it, and just in our way that we just deny it. We don't want to accept it, and who would? Because it's a scary thing. I don't believe that will happen, but some people think that we can turn our consciousness into artificial intelligence and blast it off into space, and who knows? We certainly would not have the same world without death as our constant companion, the old Grim Reaper, but it's entertaining to see people try to figure this out. We certainly wouldn't have any horror fiction like Frankenstein or even Dracula or ghost stories without the concept of death. There would be no Pet Sematary if no one dies. All right, number 2. Have you ever summoned the dead? Absolutely not. I believe in this stuff. I don't mess around with it. I take it seriously, and because I take it seriously, I would never do that. And that not to say that I haven't prayed. I've certainly done that, or communicated. It might be a one-side conversation, but communicated with some dearly departed people. I felt like in dreams I've connected like with my father, who's been passed away for 30 years. I have had those feelings, but I've never sat down like at a Ouija board and summoned. Now, I was just thinking about the Ouija board, and I pulled out my antique Ouija board. This was something I bought at an estate sale when I was about 10 or 11 years old. Now, thinking about this, I probably, when I was a kid, probably fool around with this too much, and so maybe I'm not answering completely truthfully. But as an adult, and it didn't really work, although it might have worked because I did see some ghosts, but that's a different topic. So I don't want to be dishonest here. I probably did fool around with that when I was a kid without really knowing any better. I would not do that now. So I know I like to fool around with Batilda and everything on this channel, but I do take that kind of thing very seriously. So I wouldn't do it, nor would I recommend it. Number 3, have you ever had a near-death experience? No. And I'm very lucky that way, that I've never been like seriously injured and where I've, gone to the other side. But I have had some friends who have told me some very convincing stories, and I believe that they experienced this. And when I watch a TV show like that Netflix show Surviving Death, where they talk about their near-death experience, I completely believe it. You could maybe rationalize it and say, well, it's just, trace chemicals in the brain. And I don't go for the scientific thing. I like to think it's real. In fact, when my father was on his deathbed, I'm going to try not to get emotional telling this story, so I might not succeed. But he was going into a coma, and he started singing old Italian songs that he knew as a child. His parents were from Italy, so they spoke Italian. And he used to actually taught us some of those songs. I still remember some of them. But he started singing these songs kind of like to himself, like in a whispered breath. And I remember the nurse being like, well, and some of these, I'm not saying that their nurses are bad people. I'm sure they've seen so much. They're probably just like, we've seen so many people die today. We've just kind of, not really that affected by it. But they're like, well, the brain does that. And I didn't want to hear that because in my mind, he was with his grandparents, or my grandparents rather. Like he was being welcomed in to where they were. That's what I believe, and I'm sticking to it. And then there were some other stories. Like I said, this might go on a little long, where a good friend of mine was seriously ill and he was dying. And this is not a person who was at all religious. He wasn't a Christian or any other kind of religion. He was an atheist. He did have a fever, so you could say that. But what happened was he saw a vision of Christ come down from the ceiling, and he had like a skin cancer lesions, and Christ reached out and healed with like lighted fingertips, healed his lesions, like they went away. It was a miracle, for real. And that was decades ago, and he is the picture of health today. Now, I don't think this made him into like a Christian. You know, it wasn't like he converted. It was just, he was very matter of fact about it, in fact. And, you know, it was a blessing. Just saying. Number 4, do you want to be buried, cremated, or blasted into outer space? I think the blasted into outer space one is pretty cool. I know if my dad had had his choice, that he would have liked to have been blasted into outer space. But I want a full Catholic funeral and burial with a mass, preferably in Latin, with candles and incense and all of that. The darker, the more Gothic Catholic church, the better. My Catholic church, actually, the one I go to, is pretty dark and Gothic, a beautiful stained glass windows, and there was a murder in the choir loft. So just saying, that is what I want. And hopefully when I am being lowered into the ground, it's raining and everyone has on, you know, nice black clothes with black umbrellas. I'm really hoping that would happen. Of course, I won't be there to see it, but maybe I will be. So you never know. Number 5, if you could die painlessly and come back to life after, how would you want to die? This was the hardest question for me because I kept thinking of all the ways to die and it all seemed horrible. So even like the die in your sleep one, which was the preferable one, I was like, oh. But then I thought of, I want to die from, I remember this from an old Mad magazine about the movie Love Story. If you remember, I don't know if they still do this, but Mad magazines used to do like these spoofs on popular movies. So even if you hadn't seen the movie, you read the Mad magazine version, and it was always really funny. But when that movie, this is one from when I was a kid, that movie Love Story came out with Ally McGraw, as she became like sicker and closer to death, she became more beautiful. That's what I want to die of. I want to die of the old movie star disease where, you know, you become dewier, more youthful, your eyelashes grow, your skin smooths out, and you look picture perfect, and then you sigh, and then you wake up. So that's how I answer this one. It's a bit of a cheat. And the last one, do you believe in demons? Absolutely, yes. I absolutely believe in demons. And not saying I've ever seen one, but I have definitely felt realms of evil. And let me tell you, like I said before, I like to play around with horror. I think the reason why I'm a horror buff is because it legit scares me. I don't want to be near those realms for real. I think that, you know, like one of the scariest movies I've seen in recent times is that movie Hereditary. And that guy, I forget the name of the film director, he did Midsommar and a couple other films maybe. He knows how to really scare people. The end of Hereditary, and I don't want to give out any spoilers, but the image of that final kind of witchcraft ritual is so low. You know, it's a low, like that's what to me like evil is. It's low. It's no place you want to be. We can have fun and, you know, scare ourselves and romanticize it and get into the aesthetic, but real demons, they're not fun. This is not, you don't want to mess around with this kind of stuff. I like that little clip on YouTube with Christopher Lee saying, you know, you could lose your soul. You can. I'm telling you, be careful out there. And in fact, I brought this with me today. You're learning about all my Catholicism today, but you should always carry a rosary with you, whether you're Catholic or not, because the devil hates Mary more than anything. You might remember that from reading The Exorcist. And speaking of The Exorcist, I found this book, and I can't wait to dig into it. I'm going to wait till after Halloween because I'm finishing up some books. But this is called Hostage to the Devil by Malachi Martin, a former Jesuit priest. You got to love like Father Malachi. That is a great name. This came out in the 70s, like after The Exorcist came out. And it's about real life possession. A true awesome account of the possession and exorcism of 5 living Americans, documented by a former Jesuit. This looks like a pretty intense, in-depth book. I will definitely read this and report back to you. It's pretty cool. If you know this book or this writer, let me know in the comments below. I found this just recently. I think this is a sign. So I'm not going to tag anyone in this video. I think the tag is going around and people are doing it, and I'm dying to watch everyone's videos. Dying. That's a little bit of a Freudian slip, but anyway, Lester will keep me on track here. Anyway, let me know in the comments below if you have any insights into anything that I discussed here today. I would love to hear your thoughts. So that's all I have for today. I hope you have a lovely Halloween week, and I will see you next time in my haunted library. Bye!